Death. Death to me is freedom, especially when I see a lot of injustice that I can't do anything about, and I feel like I should. I really put too much pressure on myself in that arena, thinking I can make a difference. That's why I'm in front of this camera right now. It seems like the next stage that I should have been on a long time ago, that I really shouldn't have survived this long. My mom and dad met at Travis Air Force Base in Fairfield, California. My dad was in the military. They split up. I guess they were fighting a bit, and she was talking to the commander at the base. So my dad was motivated to volunteer for Vietnam. So he left, and so it was just me, my mom, and my sister. I was born in '66 with hemophilia. Hemophilia is a bleeding disorder that causes me to bleed internally, and I have to use a medication to stop that bleeding. So it's caused a lot of damage to my body over the years. From bleeding internally causes damage to joints, and it's been very inconvenient and painful. My family was trying to help my mom. They felt she needed help. She was a single mom, and they felt like she just needed some help. So they called the authorities to try to get custody of me, and instead I ended up in foster care. And foster care for me wasn't a good experience. I experienced a lot of mental and some physical abuse. When I was 9 years old, hemophilia was an issue with one of my legs, and it wasn't the other. One leg was normal, but the military doctors were trained to prevent future damage to my other knee. And they thought, well, if we just fuse the legs, which means fused would mean they take all the lubricant out of the knee and they put you in casts for months until the bone starts to grow together. But that's a very painful process because your muscles don't like it, your bone doesn't like it. So it means wearing a cast and then braces for 3 years and then crutches and learning how to walk all over again. And then once I had my legs fused, I could barely walk. I was in a huge amount of pain and lost all my friends because it was kind of hard to play the same sports. It was just hard for other kids to handle that shift from being a walking person to a person that couldn't walk anymore without crutches and braces. And that transition was really tough. And then after I had my knees fused, I was in the hospital for 4 months, so I missed 4 months of school. By the time I got back to school, they weren't sure what to do with me. So they put me in special ed. And I didn't feel very welcome in special ed. I didn't feel like I belonged there. I didn't know I had an average IQ, but after special ed, I definitely felt like I didn't. And so that my life became harder, being in special ed and then not being able to just blend in because I had red hair and I walked like my legs, like I was on stilts. It made it hard to make friends. The idea of popularity in school for me, I never even thought about it. It didn't exist because I was so busy fending off comments or stares. I didn't see humanity as very kind. When I was 13, I was introduced to alcohol, which was a great painkiller. And it also, separated me from my life. And I latched onto that as an answer. That led to me running away and not listening to people that loved me. And by the time I was 14, I was breaking the law, getting caught stealing, and ended up in a boys' ranch, mental institution, locked up in general. Matter of fact, that became a pattern for me up until I was 18. By the time I was 18, I'd been in a lot of group homes. It wasn't long after that my doctor called me and they wanted to do some testing because they were concerned about the medication that I was using because the medication was made from blood donors. So somebody had the virus, HIV, so there was a very short conversation and then I was left to deal with it. I really didn't care even if they told me it was going to kill me because by then I tried to kill myself a few times and been unsuccessful. So I was pretty willing to go. I thought, well, at least this way I don't have I don't have to do it myself. So there wasn't a lot of fear when it came to dealing with the idea of having HIV or dying of AIDS. And I refused to take any medication because I really didn't care if I was here or not. And I didn't want to participate with some of the poison I thought was being given to people. Didn't feel like I belonged on this earth necessarily because of the pain that I walked around with. And I felt like I wasn't real productive, didn't have a lot to offer. And that led me to doing volunteer work in what they call the community, a lot of people that have bleeding disorders. And I met a lot of people that had bleeding disorders and a lot that were dying of AIDS. One of the driving forces for me was my experience with a 10-year-old boy, Rocky Alvarez. I spent hours and hours with him because his dad was in prison and his mom couldn't be in the hospital with him. And he spent most of his life in the hospital. Most of his life was AIDS from blood products. And his last day was wanting to get out of bed because he couldn't breathe. So me and his mom had to hold him down as he died. If you experienced that and then talked to his mom afterwards and she said, you got to do something about that, find out what the truth was. Why did this have to happen to my son? Then you'd be motivated to do something. In order to find out what happened, one of the things I did was help people try to create a congressional investigation. And that meant putting myself out there, going and talking to the news, standing publicly and trying to get signatures and talking about there was a lot of people that got HIV from a product. And we want to find out, if it wasn't an accident like people say, and that Congress needs to do an investigation. The medication I was using was made from blood, and I found out that the companies knew that HIV was in the blood, and that was sold to us. And when the companies were faced with throwing the product away or going ahead and selling it, they decided they would cost them less in lawsuits than it would to throw the product away. And I really didn't believe that at first until I started seeing copies of interoffice memos, one document after another. I know a lot of people, when they hear me over the years talk about these issues, they say, that doesn't affect me. All the corporations kill people, what's the big deal? There's nothing you could do about it. You never know when you're going to need blood. You can get in a car wreck tomorrow, you might have elective surgery, and you want to know that it's safe. There's a lot to the business of blood that is not talked about. It's very important to be proactive about the business of blood, to know what your rights are. I hear over and over again that nobody's heard about these stories that I talk about people getting HIV from their medications and from the blood. The story includes settlements. There was a number of different settlements. One was from the government. It was called the Ricky Ray Relief Bill. The government's apology for not stopping it when they should have, not doing everything that they could to keep the bad blood products from getting to kids. And had a lot of people mad at me for not accepting money in each group of settlements. And in the end, I took the money, but I cried. I went and cried in the hallway because I felt so guilty for taking this money. When I had seen so many people die in poverty, never even got an opportunity to take it. I thought that full medical care would be the first thing on the table for all these people that I watched die and that were sick. And enough money to take care of them the rest of their lives, and that was nowhere near what was on the table. So I felt like I had filled my community by taking the number I did. My experience at sitting at bedsides of children that were dying and other people that were dying, they taught me that what's really important when it comes down to leaving this earth the most important thing is the people you love and the people that are close to you when you die. And I really took that to heart. In 1988, I was visiting a friend of mine who I had known for a couple of years. He said, hey, you want to meet my daughter? And I don't think he knew where that was going to go, but I fell in love with his daughter. And we had twins. So that was very stressful because I didn't really want kids and I didn't know what it was going to be like and how I would handle that. The 9 months was a long 9 months. I didn't know if they'd be HIV positive or she would be HIV positive. And we got lucky. She wasn't. And they weren't. And everything turned out okay. I struggle with suicidal tendencies. I say it that way because I'm always seen like half willing to leave this earth. Like I don't belong here and I want to be somewhere else. And the only time I don't feel that is when I'm holding my grandkids or my kids. That's the purest love I've ever experienced in my life. And when I'm really close to them and I'm experiencing that exchange, I want to stay here and I get afraid to die. I think from the pain that I've experienced in my life, the bullying that I experienced and my fight against that really primed me for being a survivor. And then as a survivor, feeling responsible to express the pain that I saw and have witnessed other people experience and all the people that I watched die. And that's the only reason why I'm in front of this camera now is because I thought it was important to get this story told and possibly get a memorial. A memorial could be a tool. There was 8,000 people that died in a story that people don't even believe happened. Living means to me responsibility as a survivor to do what I think is right. Being a good example to the people I care about, being a loving, caring person to people around me. Life to me is appreciating beauty and pushing away the desire to want to die.